So, Josie, let's start with, we received an email from you where it was like, I wanted to figure out how to put a comment on one of your podcasts. I couldn't figure it out, so now I'm trying here instead. And then we got to write a little back and forth, and I was like, oh, maybe we should just invite Josie to ask all of her questions and stuff like that on this podcast interview. So here we are, and welcome, and let's figure out how we can fill this hour with fun.
Well, thanks for having me. I've never been on a podcast before, so very exciting.
Yeah.
And I like your podcast a lot because you talk about very important stuff. And I feel like there's not a whole lot of people making content like yours. And so being able to share what you have with the world essentially that's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the reason we're doing it. It could feel like some sort of waste of time right now. Our kids are at the beach and we're sitting here in a not exactly dark room, but it does make sense to just get these ideas out there. We remember when we were starting out on this kind of self-directed lifestyle, it's just feel like you're breaking off from so many systems, and it can be a really scary and lonely walk. And there was not much to find. Podcast was a quite new thing at the time. And there was not much information except for the classic books, and you would have to sit down and start. But what you need really is some real people, someone to talk to someone, listen to, meet someone. That's been our key, like the bridge that we've been walking. That's the people. So that's the reason we do the podcast. And now we're sort of guests in our own podcasts,
which I like.
Which is fun.
Then we get to talk.
That's fun. So the situation is you have a younger child, and
I do. Yeah, he'll be 2 in the spring. So, and then we'll have at that time another baby as well. So
congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot, but
yeah,
we're up to the
It's
challenge.
fine.
So.
I remember getting the second one was really that felt like hard work.
Yeah,
because the first one will completely change your life. Everything changes. It's just a game changer.
Yeah.
And the second one, for me, the biggest thing was the split, that you have to be there 100% for 2 people. And sometimes you actually have to choose, which can be really, really hard. That's a hammer into the forehead sometimes. If one is crying and another falls over and opens the knee in a big wound, you have to put the baby down and attend to the wound. And that was the big thing with the second one. And our second one was a very hard baby. So for me also, it just felt like work. Man, I didn't sleep for a year. But that was because of that specific child.
Yeah.
That's not a standard. But I think the splitting of the mom role, that's a standard.
it's difficult.
You have to get used to it.
But for me, the big change was with child number 3, because then you are outnumbered, and you begin to feel that you are not any longer the center of the universe. It is your children, and you live for them.
The first one.
Yeah, but I'm a little slow. I'm a man. Come on, it's okay.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I mean, if I had maybe thought a little bit longer about it, I might have spaced them out a little bit more than 2 years. But things happen the way they're supposed to happen, and I'm just really excited for him to have a friend. So
yeah, I think there are advantages to any distance between children, that you can't make up any rules for it. And also, it's 2 different people.
Right.
Not like you can predict how the whole trajectory will be and how the combination of there will be one more person. And that's a person with a personality, and you never know, who it's going to be. So planning is, with kids, I think it's a waste of time. You get the kids you get, and you.
But Josie, with a soon-to-be 2-year-old and a baby on the way, how did you discover unschooling and homeschooling and thought that was something for you? Because they are not in the school age at all.
It's funny that you asked, because I never thought I was going to have children. It's not something that I had really like thought a whole lot about or planned into my life or anything. I actually, I live in California now. I moved here, it was 3 years ago almost now. I lived in my van with my dogs and my cat, and I moved here and I was training jujitsu like every day. And that was we lived at the beach, and that was what I was really enjoying at that stage of my life. And, it was a little bit of an unexpected gift to find out that I was pregnant. But I've also seen that you interviewed Lucy. Is that her name? Lucy from Elastic Hippie Shake,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
channel?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Lucy,
I
yeah.
actually used to watch her many years ago when I was just looking into kind of more non-traditional and off-grid living and stuff just for myself. And I really kind of fell in love with her story and her family, and like just watching the way that she was raising her girls and stuff that really spoke to me. And so I actually got into the whole idea of unschooling kind of by accident without ever thinking I was going to have any children. So I guess I would count myself as pretty fortunate, because I feel that I have the opportunity to make kind of an informed decision before I get there, versus I know a lot of people, and I totally get it, but I feel like a lot of people look back and say, oh, I wish I had known this before. And I'm sure that there are other things I'm going to look back and say that about. But
Yeah.
just having from the outset, even just with like the whole birth process and having the life change of a child, having that idea in mind of that, this is all a learning experience, and everything is more geared towards trusting my children and trusting their natural instincts and things like that. That also sometimes helps to make, well, for me, I guess I think it maybe makes mothering a little bit easier, because I think a lot of times something that can be really difficult is to have your instincts say one thing and have society say something else. And to say, well, I don't, everyone's telling me this is the right thing, but it feels wrong and I don't know what to do. So
Yeah.
having just more trust in yourself and in your child, I feel like is a really empowering way to start off a parenting journey. So I guess I'm really blessed in that.
But it's not too early to think unschooling. It's just more rare because it happens more frequently once you get to that point where it's not just the expectations of everyone around you. I mean, now we're at a point where you have to leave your child to strangers all day. This child has to obey those strangers by doing things that they would not do. Sit down and listen for 5 hours. That's just not what they do when they're 6 years old. In some countries, it's even when they are 3. In France, it's school at 3 or 4. So that's when the reality hits a lot of parents, like, okay, this is crazy. You can handle kindergarten, you can handle, the expectations that a maybe 3-year-old will say politely, thank you, or whatever, go to bed at a specific time, or these things that they're against what would maybe be your flow, but you can sort of, get through. And then when the schooling comes, it's like, okay, fuck, what's going on now, And a lot of the strategies from unschooling totally, I mean, should be applied from the beginning. And I'm one of those who would say, I wish I'd known before. We've been learning to unschool while unschooling, and I'm still learning to unschool while unschooling. It feels like running alongside a train. I just have to pick up everything while doing everything and working on myself, and at the same time travel the world, and at the same time not being 25 anymore. I have to, just make sure I get my sleep and my water and whatever to, have the energy. So you just have a head start. It's great.
I mean, that's why I like to say that I am blessed about it. And I know that even though I'm not quite at the schooling age yet, it is really fun for me to watch, just because life is learning. It doesn't start at 3 or 4 or 5 or anything. I mean, he's learning right now, and he's doing that through play. And so it's exciting for me to kind of just understand that process a little bit more intimately, I think, and to watch the way that he's learning and the things that he loves. And even now, like, since he's been 9 or 10 months old, he's been very, very into cars, especially classic cars and motorcycles and stuff like that. So, we can pick up on things like that and do things like go to the car show that's in town when it comes. And he loves to watch fire trucks and things like that. And so then we might go and learn about fire trucks, and not in any, curricula based way, but just, we might go to the fire station and say like, hey, this is what happens here. And, he really, really loves it. And so just being able to pick up on those interests that they have, to be able to give them resources to further that interest. And being a stay-at-home mom, I'm also very blessed with the amount of time to be able to dedicate to that. I know a lot of people struggle, especially in the beginning, with their unschooling and parenting journey, because the stresses of work and like the other, and with the other parent gone all the time. And so I definitely feel like, even though I wasn't ready, and I don't think I ever would have been ready, and it was a really rough transition, I feel like I am in a pretty blessed spot to be starting out with. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I'm thinking some of the things we often say to people with older kids who start unschooling is, look back at when they were small. You didn't teach them to walk. You didn't teach them to speak. These things just happened. And speaking and walking are big accomplishments. It's not like a little thing. It's huge. It's the fact that they can do both within a year-ish or maybe 2. It's amazing. So maybe we should.
And if you think about having like a walking curriculum, like, oh, move your left leg first and then your right leg, and like when you try to break it down like that, it sounds silly.
It will come. Do not worry. It will come.
Right. They have their own natural intent and drive to learn and to experience. And I don't know if you're at all familiar with the works of Joseph Chilton Pierce. He wrote Magical Child and some other, he delved very deep into like spiritual topics, but also children and birth and a lot of the things around that as well. And his whole idea was that intent precedes ability. And so children have innate intent within them, like pre-programmed basically, to learn all these things, to have interests and to do all of this. And so being able to, as a parent or as an unschooler, however you want to look at it, being able to just facilitate the bridge between the intent and the ability by providing, whether it's appropriate modeling or just other external resources, depending on, the age and appropriateness for the child. Looking at it more as a bridge rather than like, I'm in charge of telling you what to do and like making sure that you can do it right. Just kind of bridging the gap between what they want to do and what they are going to be able to do in the future.
It reminds me of a Russian concept of good parenting. Can't remember, maybe it was Vygotsky, or can't remember which one, who worked with the concept of zone of nearest development. I'm translating because I was studying in Danish, so I'm not sure that the concept is exactly that in English, and I don't read Russian. So, but that's a really great concept where he said parents are supposed to expect from their children to be able to do things that they can't actually do.
Right.
And you think they can do it, and you maybe even brag about them doing it. And because the parents expect it, they open that space for that development. It's an interesting perspective on good parenting. But I think we have to, and maybe you're not there, but there are listeners, hopefully, to make sure that it's just, we always, when we talk about unschooling, we have the risk of falling into the trap of actually talking about having an agenda as parents. We talk about learning happens all the time. And it's not about learning when you go look at the fire trucks. It's about enjoying life. It's about having a good day. It's about going for that walk, filling up your hours with something that makes you happy. And what was that concept? We talked about someone, if it tickles your brain, if you want to do it. The challenges that, you can't stop yourself. Like one of our kids, he can't stop himself doing the Rubik's Cube. It's just, he just has to do it, man. If it's lying there and it's not perfect, it takes him 45 seconds, tops. And it's if it tickles your brain, you go do it. You don't go do, you don't throw a ball to your child in order to enhance the hand-eye coordination.
Right.
No, you
It
play
just
ball. It's not. So I just want to, yes, we are talking about self-directed and we're talking about unschooling. Yes, it happens all the time. Yes, we go pick up on their interests, but that's not because we want them to learn. It's not like I have this hidden agenda that I want my child to learn hand-eye coordination, therefore I buy a ball and go to the beach. That would be ridiculous. That's not what I'm doing. And now we travel the world with 3 of our children. I don't do that in order for them to pick up languages. No, they will pick up languages, but we travel the world because it's fun. And this agenda on the parental side, I think that's where we have to go deep inside, because what you said in the beginning about how society expects so much of you and expects specific things. You as a parent, you have the responsibility that your children turn out in a specific way. And if you don't do that because you don't do the schooling, you don't do the bedtime, you don't rule over eating hours, you don't, tell them what to do, then you have to sort of keep explaining, oh, but they will learn those things that you want me to teach them. And yes, they will learn those things that you want me to teach them. Maybe they won't actually, but
if they need them, they'll learn them.
usually they do. I haven't met many unschooled children who will not give me a handshake, look me in the eye and say hi when I arrive. I haven't met unschooled children who don't read. Well, yes, when they're young, obviously, but there's no rule to it.
No.
But really, they will learn those things. It's just that we don't live our lives in order to make sure they learn those things. It's
Right.
not the point. It's not the point.
That actually brings me to one of the questions that I had come up with, because even though I have been kind of looking into this whole philosophy of unschooling for a long time, and I really do deeply resonate with it, and I try to apply a lot of the principles, I do sometimes still find myself doing those classic like teaching moments. Even just something as simple as, like saying a word really slowly, kind of multiple times or something, just to try and get them to say it back or something like that. And so I wonder if you have any advice on how to kind of retrain your brain on having those parental teaching moments.
I wouldn't be afraid of it, item one. And then I would go back to the Russian about the zone of nearest development. If you are in sync with your child, you can see and hear and feel where they want to move. And I'm pretty sure your child would love to be able to use more words, so that you are telling more words and giving him the vocalization of the word. I absolutely see no wrong in that. And that is where some unschooling falls into in my world, unparenting. Oh, you are not allowed to do anything. I don't agree with that. I agree
That's actually
that
one of my other questions. I was going to ask you about your opinion of radical unparenting, because
but I think that
sometimes like the spectrum that gets kind of.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Let's do this one first. I think that the teachable moments that you pick up the.
I have a point.
Oh, sorry.
No. It's a point following up on one we talked about earlier, and which is about teachable moments, maybe. Parental insecurity. I, as a parent, feel way better when I can say to my mom or some strangers we meet, "Oh, my child, he learned to read in both Spanish and English and Danish more or less at the same time." Because the choices I have made in my life, that we have made, are so radically different to the norm. Not what is normal. I find what we're doing very normal, but to the norm of sending your child to school, that I feel I need to stand guard for. Yeah, but it's actually okay. Where the funny other version. We actually just did a podcast interview with a guy called Blake Bowles, where he is turning it around and is asking, so why are you still sending your children to school? It's a book.
Yeah.
So to put the responsibility of explaining yourself on those that actually put their children to school and not the ones that are not putting their children to school. But I have this, even 10 years down the road, I have this parental insecurity sometimes where I'm afraid of feeling judged on what we are delivering for our children. But that's my children are fine. They are
Right.
happy with who they are and what they are and how they live their life. It's about me. And maybe this can be dragged back into the whole performance lifestyle I have lived with, where I went to school and you need to stand in front of the class and read out loud, and you are judged on your merits all the time and not on who you are as a person, if you're a kind, wonderful human being or what. So I cannot, yeah.
Can I say something about
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
So I think we changed the subject, and in a minute I want to go back to the teachable moment.
But I just wanted to talk about me.
Yeah, I know. And we talked about you now. Now we will go on and talk about more general things.
That's all right. I'm totally,
I'm just
totally relaxed.
We're
Happy
just
to hear
joking.
whatever you have to
No,
say.
we're just joking. It's fine. No, but I think one thing that we really learned, maybe one of us more than no, sorry. It is who needs this? And I think it's important that we understand and we go inside as the parents to see, if I want my children, let's say I want my children to be able to do the handshake, look in the eye, say hi. When we arrive to a new social situation, I want them to be able, I don't, for the record, I don't want that. But let's say I wanted that. But it would be fair enough if I needed it. Let's say I wanted that. Let's take something I do want. We arrive in a new social setting. I want my children to wear clothes that are preferably without holes in them and that are clean. No ketchup on the t-shirt. Just the moment of arrival. I'm not being very, I just have, and I know that's my need. I need that. I cannot handle arriving in a new social setting, or let's say at a museum, anything public, and we look like,
shitty hippies.
we just ate in the sofa for a week, I can't have that. And maybe my kids don't care, but I care. And I think it's very important that I know that this is my need. I need this. And I will tell my children to change that t-shirt, and they will change it. And we're not leaving before they changed it, unless they can come up with a really good argument. I will make them change that t-shirt. Mm-hmm. But I think what happens here is I can also tell them, I need that. It's not everyone has to wear a clean t-shirt forever, always. That's the right thing to do. And you're a bad person if you don't do it. And I don't go there. I just say, I need that. One of our kids is very specific. He's not really a kid anymore. Our oldest son is 17. And he's very specific with, I don't like being late. If we have an appointment at 3 o'clock, I want to be there at 3 o'clock. It really stresses me out, and I don't like it when we're late. Can we please make sure that we are on time? And
we try.
He needs that. And some of us are like, okay, if we arrive 15 minutes after, that'll be fine. But we respect his needs. He's in the family. He needs that, and he can express it. And we all try to, make sure that happens. And it's sort of the same thing with, let's say, math. It's one of the key things. I could tell my children, I need you to at least learn, the basics. I need that because I don't feel safe as an unschooling mom if you don't go through that minimum curriculum that I will now put in front of you. You can do it whatever way you want, but I can't handle it. I get anxiety attacks. I get attacked from the state, from my mother-in-law. I don't.
No.
He's nice, but it could, no, but really. But then let's say from my own sister or my mom, I get attacked on my person. I get attacked on my security as a member of society if you don't do this. So please do it. it's not because you have to as a person, but you have to in the context that you're actually living in. If you can sort out those things, this is something to hear, I can give you freedom. And after this point, I can't handle it. You only have one mom, and that's me. And this is the point. And I'm working on that point. But now we are here. You have to change that t-shirt before we go into the car. That is really a key thing. And I think that's a problem that many parents don't even start to work with. They have this standard idea about how children are supposed to behave and what they're supposed to do and achieve at what points. In some societies, you're even down to, if you ask your local pediatrician, I think is the English word, or whatever expert on children, they can even come up with a list. They're supposed to use a pair of scissors when they are 3 years and 2 months. And if they can't do that, you're in the bad. Yep. They're supposed to be able to catch a ball when they are 4 years and 2 seconds. It's insane.
It is. And I have a point about it being that I have met unschooling parents where it almost becomes unschoolingism, where it is not a religion, but like something you do and you need to do it like this. And if you don't do it like this, then you're not a real unschooler. And what I see is, again, some sort of parental insecurity. It is super weird to get a child. It's really big. And you should doubt if you're doing it good enough, because it is wild. But some parent, it's so much easier to take another curriculum, not the schools, but then you read all the correct books on unschooling, and you're saying, oh, I will do it exactly this way. And what then happens is that you have some other crutches than the school system and the curriculums, but your children can feel if you're not true to yourself. And I see that as a problem sometimes, that people like go all the way inside, outside themselves, and they're like, I should be okay with this because that's what it says in the unschooling Bibles. I should be okay with it. And your children can feel you're not honest. So why sacrifice the connection with your child because you read a book? Yeah.
I think that brings us back actually to the other theme of the teachable moments. And you know, should you repeat the word 5 times? And when they get older and they ask a simple question, and 10 minutes later you're talking about the Civil War and human rights, and you know, you're just babbling on because I think it really has to do with your agenda and the relation you have with your kid, because it's one of the human traits that we pass on information to our children. And we teach them how to manage living in this world, in the society that they grew up in, how to understand the context, how to manage the social field, how to handle basic physical needs, how to make money. All these things have always been passed on from parents to children, from grandparents to grandchildren. Information spreading, where there's a reason it's called the mother tongue. It's because you are supposed to teach them how to speak. And if you don't do that triple rehearsal of the right way to pronounce it, who's going to do it? How will they learn? They don't learn spontaneously. They learn to speak because they're talking to someone.
Yeah, I guess the idea that I was kind of and you're right that this does come from someone who like just kind of gave me an idea of this is a good way and this is not a good way. So to speak to that, I think there's a lot to do with parental insecurity, especially when you're first going into something. And you it's great to talk to people who have experience like you, but when you're first going into it and you do have, like, you know, like you said, your mother-in-law in society and like trying to tell you that,
oh yeah,
you know,
but I think the problem is if someone's telling you this is a good way to do it and this is a bad way to do it, like let's say the language thing, it's not about how you do it, really. It's about your intention behind it. You know, are you stressed out about your child speaking perfectly? Speaking is a bad example because all kids learn to speak and they learn that before school age. So if we're talking unschooling, it's not, if it was reading, it would be different because reading is something that usually is taught in schools. And usually parents teach their kids to read with the agenda, you know, read early or whatever, this, you know, achievement thing. But really, there's nothing wrong with teaching your child to read. Nothing at all. It has to do, the only problem is if it's your agenda and you're stressing out about they have to read at a specific moment in life and they have to read specific books and they have to do it in a perfect way, in a perfect pace, at a perfect time. It's not about how you teach them to read. You can do it by, you know, buy a blackboard and put it up in your kitchen and do the ABC, whatever conservative way you want to do it. Sit down at 8 o'clock every morning, rehearse for half an hour. If that's the way you do it, but you do it with the, you know, because your child is asking for it, because that's what makes everyone happy, because that's the way to do it in your family. Maybe some kids are just so damn structured. They like that, you know, like our son who just likes to be punctual. It's not about how you do it. It's about your intention. Are you willing to let it go the day the child says, go play football? Or would you know, now we bought the blackboard and the books and it's 8 o'clock and we have to sit here. So, because what will everyone say if you're not reading in 6 months? It's all about the agenda and the intention behind it. It's not about how you double pronounce, or are you teaching alphabet first, or it's not about that, really.
Yeah, that really resonates with me as well. And I think it was Joseph Chilton Pierce who talked about state-specific learning, that when you're in any environment, it can even be like a school environment, and you're because you're always learning. And so what he was saying is that what you're actually taking in the most of is the state that you're in and the state that other people around you are in. And so if you're in an environment where you feel, you know, pressured to perform to these academic standards and all this stuff, that's what you're going to remember. You're going to remember feeling tense and feeling anxious about whatever the subject is that you were trying to learn, versus if, you know, if it's he and I, you know, at the kitchen table with a book about trucks and we're going over it, and like, if I can keep free of that agenda and help him to feel just comfortable and safe to kind of explore at his own pace, that's what he's going to remember, that he felt comfortable when we were learning about trucks together or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But also, really, you're probably, you know, going to learn to multiply in that hostile environment of the school and the pressure. You will be able to multiply after it. But the problem is that the emotions and the way you carry yourself, that has such a deep impact that's really hard to work with later on in life. And this is the main job, I think, of growing children, to find out how to navigate everything you pick up with your empathy, with your feelings, with your body being present in the room, with your way to move through social situations. How do we hold each other? Do we have each other's backs, or are we competing? Competition can be fine if it's, you know, structured. So this is the most important job and the one that will have the most important impact on your life. That's actually how it felt to be a child. Not saying that they shouldn't learn anything, and you know, it's hard to stop them anyway. So, but I'm just
I
saying
think the
that
deschooling of ourselves is also a really important. I mean that, and that's the lifelong learning journey for me now, is to kind of. And there's actually, I have a great example of this. Actually, my husband, I mean, we both went to school in a traditional setting, and he learned to read the traditional school way of like, you need to be at this level at this time, and like, let's read out loud in front of the class, and if you don't do it, you know, it's embarrassing and everyone laughs at you. So he had this really just difficult relationship with reading, where he wasn't really allowed to fall in love with it the way that I was. My mom always read around me, and we had lots of books, and so she kind of taught me a love of reading because she loved reading, whereas he got a very different introduction to reading. And it's actually very heartwarming now to see, because I provide a lot of books for my son, and he loves to pick them out and like sit in our lap and read with us. And now that we're getting into some of the like Dr. Seuss books and stuff, my husband is like, oh, I get the cadence of this, and it's fun to read this, and like I really
Oh,
enjoy it. And so
nice.
I feel like he's kind of rediscovering a love of learning that had been kind of stolen from him in the beginning. So
Yeah. I have a point I was thinking about earlier, which is I remember when we started going down the whole unschooling, homeschooling road, I felt a big need to either fight the oppressor or argue with everybody about why schools are bad and why unschooling is the best. And it is a way it was a way to give myself some pillars of strength, of belief that this was right. Today, my advice to everybody would be, don't take the fight. Don't talk with them about unschooling if they don't are really curious. If you have a mother-in-law that are curious if about they learn something, speak educanese with her, where you say, oh, they have learned this and this. If that makes her chill and happy, make her chill and happy. And then just live your life and relax. I know I have wasted some hours here and there by trying to explain to people why this was the best, but that was what I needed to kind of strengthen myself. Today, I would just live my life.
yeah.
Yeah. So Josie, we talk a lot, and you had some questions. So are there any more direction we should go in?
Well, we covered a lot of the stuff that I wanted to get into about, like unparenting and teaching moments, and advice to someone just starting a parental journey like I am. So I feel like we've touched on a lot of that. I did have a question about if you have any specific recommendations. And this isn't necessarily about unschooling, but so much as like in the unschooling environment, do you have any recommendations for kind of facilitating that sibling bond? I had it pointed out to me recently that and it seems obvious now that I say it out loud, but a sibling relationship, and I don't have any biological siblings. I have an adopted brother, but I wonder how well what was pointed out to me was that your sibling relationship is the one that lasts with you for the longest in your life. It'll outlive your spousal relationship, your parental relationship, anything like that. And it just kind of really struck me in that moment, like how important it is to me to facilitate that bond and make sure that I'm not like getting in the way of that or overdoing it or anything like that. So I wonder if you guys have any advice in that topic.
Many different roads. One of them is an article Cecilia wrote like more than 10 years ago called Siblings Without Jealousy.
So if I'm to paraphrase the thing I wrote, it's more like it's usually, not always, but usually there is at least one root in sibling jealousy, which is about feeling that the other sibling is getting more attention or more love or something is being preferred in some way. It doesn't have to be true. It's a feeling inside the child. It might be if you have a preferred child, it might even be the preferred child who has this feeling. And it might be the child who gets the most attention, who still feels that they are not. So I'm not saying that the parent is not giving right or doing something wrong. I'm just saying this is probably what is one of the main roots. And some beauty of it is there's no way around it. You just have to handle. We started there talking about how you have to divide yourself. Maybe that was before the recording, how you have to divide yourself when you have more than one child. You have to divide your attention to more than one person. And there's no way you're going to do that perfectly. It will be weird. It will have phases. Things will happen. And the kids will feel maybe that they're not getting enough, or they're getting cheated, and they will feel that. And I think the main point of the thing I wrote 10 years ago is that you have to acknowledge that feeling is real. The facts behind it might not be real, but the feeling is real. This is what the child feels, and that's why he's hitting his little brother. And so work from there without the anger, without the pointy finger. And I think that's what I wrote. I don't think that would be my first thing to talk about when you ask about how to support and facilitate sibling bonds. I think my first thing actually taps into also the deschooling we also just touched upon briefly. Is I think a lot of unschooling parents get too ambitious about how they are supposed to do things and very afraid of doing it wrong. For me, the most important thing is that we do live our lives. Also, the parents. You're not working 24/7 when you're a mother. You're living your life, and somehow you have some children and you have to take care of them. It's not like it's your job and you have to man up for it like all the time. It's life. Life is that you have children, just like life is that you have feet almost. It's just a natural part of it. You have to live with it. You have to cut those toenails. I mean, there's no way around it. And in the same way, you have some children, you have to take care of them. It's your job. That's a very important opinion of mine. It's your job. But I don't think you should feel that you're working all the time and that you're always in the risk of doing it wrong and you always have to do it perfect. Go to the beach, have some fun, and make some mistakes. Go make a lot of mistakes. You'll make mistakes, and your teenagers will blame you for it, no matter what you do. That's how it is. That's real. And I mean, facilitating sibling bonds, it's a good starting point to not send them to institutions, that they grow up together, that you're one family unit. And talk to your kids about it. That's I mean, they are actual human beings. They can express themselves. Yeah. They can say what they feel. They can.
For example, our boys, they enjoy playing some games together, and from time to time we're like, oh, there's something wrong here. What is it? And then they don't feel seen by each other, and then we talk. So I think that's one of the biggest jobs for a parent, is all the talking, all the listening. And then you talk some more, and you listen some more, and you talk some more, and you listen some more. And you have the luxury of time together with your children. And I think that's the biggest gift. And it's also what helps the sibling bond, is that you can help facilitate the dialogue when something is skewed and not okay between them, because you are actually around and can see it. And you feel it if they are not in sync with each other, and then it's just talking.
That is really a sense of point that we might as well pick up here. Unschooling is talking. Yeah. Unschooling is about conversations. Unschooling is so much communication. It's very, very hard to even start to describe it. I cannot imagine how I would find time to go to work. There is just so much talking, and it needs to be done. And it's not like we sit down in like a meditation post and have a group meeting 3 times a day. It's not like that, but it's just like conversations happen. And if I feel there's something weird in a relation between, we have a lot of sibling relations because we have 4 children, obviously. If something's weird is going on, then first I stand back and see, will they figure it out themselves? Because it's their relation. And if it doesn't really work, I will ask them, I feel something here. Is there something we need to talk about? Can I help you? Could we talk about it? And maybe they say no. And that's a bummer, because you have to respect that. Sometimes what we need to do is to go for a walk with one child and ask what's happening, how you feel, what's actually happening for you. And it might be a long walk, it might be several hours. And then you go for a walk with the other child and you ask him, what's up for you? You know, I feel there's something off with your brother or sister, and how is it unfolding? And then you come back and then you go for a walk with first child again, try to paraphrase the other child. And it just takes forever.
Yeah,
really. And it's really annoying sometimes, like, just sit down, please.
no, but I know it from myself. Sometimes it's just someone who gives time to listen to your frustration. So when you have said what you find annoying about another person, then it leaves your system. But sometimes we, or I as a parent, I want to go to the finish line first, where Cecilia is a little better in actually taking good.
I have something that you don't have a lot of.
No, that's what patience.
It's called patience. Yeah.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid word.
So patience, that is a good piece of advice. Have patience with it. And I have another one, which is actually, this holds true for any relation. If the relation is important and you want that relation, you need to have something to do together. You need to have something other than the relation, something to share. Could be the passion of literature. It could be that you have children together. You sort of, you know, that's a lifetime commitment. And you have something that you're doing together. That's the parenting. And with the kids, what we do if we feel is when they were younger, we would more be in control of it and just do it because they were small. And now they are big, so we talk to them about it. But it's having that common ground. So would you be interested in, let's say, watching all the Star Wars movies together? Would that be something both of you would like to do? And then maybe that's what they do. And then they have the Star Wars universe to talk about and maybe do drawings about. And that's a common ground. They have something together and they can unfold the relation inside this common ground. And maybe everything else they're interested in is different. One is all about the fire trucks and another one is all about football. You know, what are they going to do together? But maybe you will find a passion for flowers or music or cooking or whatever. And we are now, but our kids are older. Just took all the talking I talked about before, you know, years and years of talking to get them to a point where they all understand that if you want that relation to be good, you have to find that common ground.
You have to work.
And maybe it's not your favorite thing to watch the Star Wars movie, but maybe it could interest you just a little bit, you know? And you could do it because you want to do something together. The important part is the together. It's not the Star Wars. You can be care shitless about Star Wars. It's not your thing. But maybe that would be the thing, you know, at the end of stretching both of you so that you had something.
Yeah, you need something.
And no one should go do what the other one is passionate about, like, you know, like a servant or, you know, you have to find that thing. And in our family, the all 5 of us thing, or all 7 of us, when we have our daughter and son-in-law with us, is we can always go for a walk. Everyone can agree on going for a walk. It could be nature, it could be a museum, it could be a city, it could be whatever. But if we go for a walk, we're all interested in going for that walk, and we can go many hours. So that's like, you can even laugh about it, but because it's so, I mean, maybe not very interesting in and of itself. But if we go for a walk for 2 or 3 hours, everyone's talked to everyone. We all experienced something together. Now we're in some sort of desert environment, and it's fun to look at the different nature and birds, and then we come back and have
We found that.
and everyone, we have that common ground. We did something together. And we also do that like one by one. I can cook with my son-in-law, and I can, you know, draw with my one daughter and read with the other.
And Storm, our oldest son, he is really fun in the way that he's more organized, way more organized than I am.
The organized one.
Yeah, but he actually have made a rule for himself that he wants to make sure that he have a moment and interact with everybody in the family every day. So he's like, okay, now I have talked with dad, boom, then I need to remember to talk with the other ones. And when he said that first, I was like, yeah, you are a wonderful, weird kid. And then I was looking at myself and I was like, okay, fuck. It's not every day I get a moment together with one of my children because I don't have that mental list of remember to honor the bond you have. Because we live so much together that sometimes we are just hanging out in the vicinity of each other. But he actually made that rule and it inspired me. And I'm trying to see if I can get into the habit of doing the same.
I asked him, I think it's 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because he was in a bad place. He was annoyed with things and frustrated, and I don't know. He was in a bad place, and I was trying to say, okay, if you're in a bad place and you don't know what to do, it's always a good idea to go back to your values, find out what's important in your life, and then let's see how we can. It was in Mexico City. It's not for him with the, it's 22 million people lying around in the street, and the smog.
He's too feeling sensitive.
He just can't have it. But he did want to go to see the Aztec treasures, and so there was a reason for him to be there. But he was just off in Mexico City, and I asked him, going for that walk again, by the way, what are your values? And my 17-year-old son, he could spit it out like that. Okay.
And I can tell
my core values are.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, because I'm not going to paraphrase it. It's his values. But I just found that was very beautiful. That I felt, okay, I'm done. This is, I can pat myself a little as a mother.
That's what I love. I can tell just the way you talk about him that he knows who he is and he knows what he values. And like, and I've heard you talk about it in a podcast before. That's so much more important than like, oh, he can do multiplication or, oh, he can read this novel. Like he knows who he is and what he wants and how he can go about getting it for himself. And I think that's just like so important. And I love how much you stress like the emotional intelligence and the authentic expression, because I really feel like, especially in society, like those kind of things are really suppressed. Like you can often be shamed for expressing yourself authentically. And I love that you're fostering that environment in your family. That's really inspirational.
Yeah, but I mean, after Mexico City, I had to joke about the homeless because that's my way of handling the rough reality of people just lying on the ground outside where we live. It is too much, so it's easier for me to go in and into a cynic joking mode because to feel it, to actually feel it. That's not nice. I don't like those feelings. No.
Yeah.
Rather,
Tom is not like
no, Tom is not like that. He doesn't have that cynic filter.
I think it's
Cynical filter of the world. Yeah.
But one of
I feel like I have that a lot, but my husband doesn't really like that so much. So I try to tone down the sarcasm and the jokes and stuff like that because it's
but it's a good survival mechanism. Yeah, it's a survival mechanism sometime,
Yeah.
But Storm could spit out his values, and one of those values was, it's important to me that I have really strong relations with my most important people in my life.
That's awesome.
He knows that, and he knows how to get that. He knows how to arrive at that point. And one of the things for him is he has this rule: I spend some time with everyone in the family every day. Find a way to do it, whatever way. And he's a little structured. He knows, if I do that with mom and that with dad and that, and I go through everyone every day and we touched upon each other. That's nice. So I think as a parent, if you want to empower the sibling bonds, you have to realize that that's your agenda. Maybe, can I talk? Maybe you get children who actually don't like each other. And you have to respect that. Some children don't get that sibling bond. It's not an important relation in their lives. They grow up as very different people, and they don't share any common ground. There is no Star Wars for them. They just can't do it. And I think if your agenda is that the bond should be really strong and warm, and they have each other's backs, and they're really brothers in life, and all these things, it is your agenda. And I think you should work with it, because I think you're right. It's an important relation. There's no way around it. It will be an important relation. It will be important if there's no relation, you will live with that. And so, yes, do your best, but also realizing it is your agenda. And for the most part, you could let it just unfold and have those conversations over all the years. Now we can brag about our wonderful 17-year-old son. but yours are not 17 anymore. You have 15 years with one of them and even more with the other to work on that, or to, provide help so that they will land in a point where when they are young adults, they will know who they are and what's important to them. And maybe it's not family bonds. It could be something you find really strange, like it's very important for me to win the video game contests every year. That will not be my value, but you have to respect it. It could be someone else's value.
There's another really simple way of working on sibling bonds, which is don't give them separate rooms. Don't give them a lot of separate toys. I've been in houses where they have like the same Spider-Man, but each have their own in different rooms. And that is not learning to share.
We also work by the slogan, everyone gets what they need and provide with what they can. And that's always been like that. We don't share equal. We share what we have, making sure everyone gets what they need to the extent that we can give it to them. You have to look for what they need. And you also have to look at who they are. And I think it's when they are small, and yours are small, this whole room thing is not even relevant. You just share the space where you live. And maybe at some point it is really important to have your own Spider-Man.
Of course.
It's really important to have your own Spider-Man. And we've been in positions where we had to buy 4 of the same thing. So each had their own. And it didn't make any sense financially. It didn't, for us, it's like, we really have to do that. But we really had to do that. So it's not about, I don't think strong sibling bonds necessarily come from learning to share. I think that's actually my main point. Learning to share could ruin the sibling bond. If the parents have an agenda that you have to learn to share with your brother, that's really important. And it just goes against the child's nature. I want to have my own pillow. This is my space. I need that. Then that's what the child needs. I think
my point comes more from the classical norm of every child has their own room with a lot of stuff in. If you can start by challenging that, and of course, if one of the childs is more secluded and wants their room for themselves or whatever, well, that is what you provide. But there's so many things we do because we have been raised to do it. And it's only a short period, actually, where the standard has come. My grandparents, they had 4 children in a 2-room apartment. And that was normal back then. But then something happened, and then everybody needed to have their own room, and the dad needed to have an office, and some needs to have a walk-in closet, and just gone crazy. And I find it important to step out of the norm and ask yourself, well, what works for our family? What do we want? Do we want one playroom? Do we want one giant bed? What is it we need? And not based on what we think we need, but actually taking the time again to take the talks, and figuring out what is right in your family.
And I want to clear something up. I said a lot about talking to the children about what they need and learning them to express, teaching them to express what they need and why they need it and all these things. I think that's wrong to do with smaller children, actually. I think with the small children, you get to be a parent and you get to see, once they start touching the ear and the eyes, and you know they're tired. And maybe they don't know, but you know. And you may say, you're tired, I'll put you to bed now. And the kid might say, I'm tired. And then, okay, let's just sit here, with the blanket and the book, and we dim the light and we'll make sure you fall asleep because you clearly need to sleep. And I think when the kids are younger, it can be very stressful for them if the parents
take the responsibility
to say, I need this and I don't need that, I like this and I don't like that. You have to be very alert and watch them. And make sure you watch them and see who they are and what might work for them. And that Star Wars common ground, it has to come from you, because they will not, when they are like 3 and 2 years old, and you try to find out what can they do together. It's not a lot. But you have to come up with it. Maybe we can all go for the walk that we always do in our family. Maybe beach time is good time with the group that you have. Then you go to the beach and there will be some interaction. And you get to decide that. And they might all scream and shout they don't want to go to the beach. But once we get there, they'll have fun. And I think you really have to tone down the expectation that children can express what they need and why they need it and how they want it and what will make them happy when they are small. I think a lot of unschooling parents, a lot of very good parents with very good intentions, they overdo this thing and they get stressed out children. Yeah. It's okay to make decisions on behalf of smaller children. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do your best and do it wrong and try again. And I think it's also okay to not do deschooling, to just beware that deschooling is sort of just like a little lamp you've got lit inside your head, but not a process that I'm working on. Just, okay, maybe that might be my schooling mindset. Wait a minute, I'll think about that next week when they stop vomiting because actually they're sick right now. No, but really, smaller children, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of basic work. You serve like 95 meals every day and you change all the diapers and the washing machine is just going 24/7. And now someone fell and now someone's crying and now someone finally fell asleep, but then the dog started barking and oh my God, and you're so tired yourself and you're breastfeeding with one hand and cooking a meal with the other. I did that. I learned to include my foot in the kitchen work, one of them, because I had to stand on the other one because I was out of hands. I know how it is. And I think it's very good to start now to think about unschooling and where you are. It's amazing to be there when the kids are that small, but don't stress out about it. Make your mistakes, have some fun, do whatever the best you can. I mean, you'll be tired and you'll be just have a cup of tea and look at the sunset or watch Netflix, whatever. It can be too ambitious.
Oh, yeah.
And it for everyone involved. And then it's a stressful, overdone environment that you're growing up in. And that's not nice either.
I like someone put it in a way where it was like, oh, that's actually very fun, which is that if you have had your children at home, and then reaches the schooling age and don't do it, it's a big step for you as a parent. It's like, oh, now I'm not sending my children to school. But your children are actually just continuing everyday life. It's not like they wanted to go to school or unless they've been programmed to, that's what you do. But
sometimes you have all the neighbors.
Did you ever have any of your children like ask you like, I want to go to school, I want to be like other kids? Like how
our oldest child was in school throughout the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
One of them has been to school, an alternative, radical, whatever, but it was a school.
Yeah, and Silke puts it that it sounds interesting sometimes what people are doing, but she's more like, but is it really every day? That was what she said when she was younger.
Well, she says, that sounds fun, but I don't have time to do that every day.
No. Why are they starting so early? It's kind of stupid.
I'm not getting up that early, and I don't have time to do it.
And Storm tried, he tried one day of high school for fun with a friend who's a teacher. One of our friends is a teacher at a high school, and he was like, Storm, come, you should see what it is.
He came back and said, the level is so low, I can't handle it. That was fun. Yeah. No, they're not. They didn't.
No, they haven't. But
they're still young. Some of them might.
But it is not our goal that they shouldn't go to school if they really want. We would talk with them, but if they really want, of course, they're free human beings.
I wouldn't say, of course. I would fight back. I'll admit it. I would. I don't regret anything in my life except that.
Yeah.
If I could go back and change, that's the one thing I would change, plus that vaccine that gave me cancer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't send my first child to kindergarten and all those things.
No.
I wouldn't send every moment my kids have spent
away
in the care of strangers. I regret that, but nothing else. That's my rule. That's how I do it. I don't do regrets, but I will admit I regret that.
But it's part of how you learn too. That's how you learned you didn't want to do that
anymore.
Yeah. She didn't have a bad life. It's not like she got brutally hurt by it, or it was, I mean, we provided a good home environment, and we didn't expect, I mean, we were still unschoolers at home, but we didn't expect her to do any homework. And if she said she didn't want to go to school, we were like, okay.
Yeah, I remember one day she was like, Mom and Dad, I really don't want to go to school today. Okay. Come on, now it's you should actually say go to school. And we were just like, well, it's your choice.
She said, it's your job to force me.
And we said, nope.
And I said, you know what? No. It's not.
That's funny.
No, but she said it jokingly.
Yeah. Siblings were not in school, and she knew the drill. Yeah.
We have time for one final question, if there is.
And then the beach is calling all of our kids.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I had here is actually the original thing that I emailed you about, and I wasn't even really sure if I wanted to get into it or not, because really I don't love to get into, like, especially political type of opinions too much, because I don't think it's important for other people to have the same beliefs that I have or anything like that. I was just curious, I guess, based on the conversation that you had. I don't remember the gentleman's name. You've had 2 interviews with him.
Yeah, Patrick. Yeah.
Yeah. Just based on that, I'm curious what you think, in your own lives, what do you think the government's relationship with parenting or schooling should be, ideally?
As little as possible.
Absolutely, as little as possible. I
should be the last resource that the government has anything.
And I think and we come from a place with the so-called welfare system, and I actually believe that it has hurt family bonds in a way, because you get used to the system can take care of your weak. And when it is like that, then you don't take in your sick brother or your old mom and dad. They will live alone in a house, and then the social worker will come and help them because you don't want to have them living with you. And that is sad. And I believe that the welfare system sometimes have, unfortunately, broken down the family bonds, because it is someone else's responsibility and not your own. And I see that as a problem. To go back to your original question, should the state in any way go into family? Absolutely not.
I guess the context was just, you were having a discussion about like providing free schooling and free college and things like this. And if you're, it sounds like what you're saying is that you like to have it there as a last resort when it's needed for people who choose that.
Yeah.
College and school is very different. It's 2 very different things. Schooling of children under the age of, I will say 15, could be 16, whatever, young children, before they are older teenagers. I am 100% against that. I think it's a bad thing. College, that's even after high school. That's like a 20-year-old almost. I think that is a good thing, because at that point, hopefully it's voluntary. Hopefully this is a young adult who wants to learn something, and they go to school to do it. We don't do colleges in Europe in the same way as you do it in the States. We don't go live there. It's not like this wild summer camp situation. But the learning, so let's just discuss the learning part of it, not the living situation. The learning part of being at college or university is 100% a good thing. And I totally, if there is one thing I think we should pay for as taxpayers, it is the education of our young adults. It makes so much sense that it's easy and accessible for everyone to get an education for free. In our country, we even pay people to do it. So you get a salary. And so you don't have to work, so that you can focus on your studying. It's a waste of time to give people a free education if they can't actually find the time to read the books. So we pay them a salary. And I think that makes total sense. And I'm putting a line between the 2 different things. And the word in that line, it's like a crosswords word going vertically.
Compulsory.
It's called voluntary.
Yeah.
If you do it because you want to do it, it's completely different. It's the same thing with younger children. If, let's say, 12-year-old wants to learn to speak Chinese, and you provide a Chinese course with a Chinese teacher, and you have to show up every Wednesday at 3 o'clock prepared, then it's not against unschooling. There's nothing wrong with that. It's because the child wants to learn Chinese, just like the example I had earlier. If your child wants to learn to read with a blackboard at 8 o'clock in the morning every day, if that's what they want, it looks like education. It is education. But the big difference is that it's voluntary. So we think that the state should not interfere with family life, and it should not interfere with the education of the younger children. And it should be like a last resource. If you're really out of energy, or someone is an orphan and there are no neighbors, no grandmother, no one, of course it's nice that you have something. I mean, it makes sense. The state is like the prolonged arm of the society, of the community of people living together in some area on the planet. But I think that we have the problem now that in many places, the state thinks it knows better, that strong families are a problem, like almost like a sect situation, that you have to intervene if the family is too strong. That is really a problem.
I love that answer. I love that you stress that it's voluntary. And it sounds like your ideal would be if you kind of like switched the systems, where you take the money that's going into like primary school education and like just throw it all into voluntary college so that they can choose that when they're ready.
Obviously, we couldn't just close the schools tomorrow. I know that would be a structural problem, and the parents are not ready for it and all these things.
Right.
A finishing thought from me is that, as Cecilia said, that the state thinks it knows better. I think a big problem is a lot of parents believe that the system knows better. And this is why we call our podcast self-directed. And it's one of the most important parts is take responsibility for your own choices and life. Use all the time to talk and think about why you believe what you believe, because it is so easy to just do what you're told is right. But your children can feel it if you're not true to yourself. And I think that is a giant problem we have, is that we have not been taught to listen to ourselves in the way we have been brought up. And that is part of the whole deschooling, to figure out, who am I actually? What do I believe in?
I think that's so important. It's such a good point. And for me, I a lot of what I believe in is that it also starts with birth and like the system. And I'm not saying that people who choose to have births within the system have anything wrong, just that I feel like oftentimes that's where the power starts getting taken away from you, and you don't feel like you can own your choices around your birth and stuff like that. And so I think that's really crucial. I appreciate that you brought that up.
Yeah, it is time. So we should say goodbye. It
Going
was wonderful, Just Josie, to
Thank
meet
you so much
and
for
connect.
having me on. It was a great first podcast experience. You guys are a wonderful couple, and I love what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun talking, but now the beach is calling.
Please go. Please go. I wouldn't want you to wait another minute.